chat for sharing with anybody to view. You're all welcome to see the presentation. Maybe could you share screen for me?
Totally. Or I think I can just make your other profile the host, and then you can just share it from there, which is easier for you. I'm happy to do either one. What is easiest for you?
Probably easier if you do it, since that way I don't have to be on like managing one computer talking to another computer, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
cool. All right, hold on. It just pulled me out of, all right, where did it go? I know you just dropped it in the chat. Okay, so I've got that open. Let me, let's see. Oh, all right. I did just make it so that you can share, but
You
now
did.
I actually
Okay.
want to share.
You know what? Let's keep it simple. If I can share, I will.
Okay, I've got it. Okay, you got it. Woohoo! All right.
See, this is tradition that one must fill around with the settings every time we use a new conference. So, and for me, the funny part for me is Zoom. I am quite familiar with. We use it every day at work constantly. But of course, when I put it on my personal laptop, it's like, no audio for you. Anyway, so
Well, we might as well just jump right in, everyone. This is Scott, and now that we've all had a chance to get to know each other through Zoom. I just wanted to quickly say welcome everyone to the first Onramp Speaker Series of 2024. I'm so happy to have you here. I hope everyone had a really great break. And we are so happy to have Scott here. Scott is not only an amazing person, he's also a mentor in our Onramp Elevate mentorship program right now. He's got a wealth of knowledge to share with you. I'm going to let him do his own like bio and introduction. However, I just want to repeat for those who came in late, typically we have used the Q&A box for questions. The new Zoom interface seems to have taken it away. So what we're going to do is after Scott's presentation is if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat box, or if you're feeling really brave, just go ahead and take yourself off mute and ask a question. This is a very casual conversation. This is your opportunity to ask Scott questions. He is an industry professional, a resource to you, so please feel as though you can use this time to have a conversation and get your questions answered. With that, Scott, I will turn it over to you to take it from there.
awesome. Thank you so much, Dana. And the very kind words, I appreciate. I'm so glad to be a part of the Onramp community, and hoping. I was thinking back, what can I share out with the broader group? And realized I also took a non-traditional path into the world of software engineering and technology. And it's been quite the journey, having all sorts of different roles over time and adapting to the reality of change in the world of what markets are doing well, and where are the jobs and all that. So I wanted to share my story with hopes that it inspires others. So it will be two parts, and I gotta look over to the left so I can advance slides. First, tell you a little bit about myself. Talk about my career journey next, and then I'll share with you the top 5 wisdom. There's lots of things I've learned over the years in my career and just in life in general. Just kind of share with you my top 5 things to think about, how they've related to my life and helped me, in hopes that wisdom helps you. Then we can spend a little time, or ask me anything. Happy to answer whatever questions that you have. So that said, I think this is a very important first slide. I debated, do I include it? Is this too personal? But I wanted to include this slide before I talk about my career journey. I will say early in my career journey, I was very focused on how do I climb the corporate ladder, get that next promotion, get some new project done and under my belt. And over time, I received some advice. This is, I guess, number 6 or number 0. To pace yourself. You got to enjoy life along the way. So at least I want to share, as I'm talking about my career, things I've done, time I've invested for learning so that I could adapt. There's always been this balance of spending time with my family. I do martial arts with my kids. I've got 2 dogs, well, 1 dog left, but 2 dogs at heart. Just always trying to have good family time. And I encourage that as well. We should find balance in life, not just always focus on work. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about my journey. Like, how did I get to where I am? And it's very wandering, but with lots of interesting catalysts that caused change in my career. So first thing, I studied electrical engineering in my undergraduate degree, so not software engineering. And I thought I was going to come out and design circuitry. I had been doing internships and working for GE for some time. So when I graduated, I thought, this is great. I'll start my career in electrical engineering. I'll focus on circuitry. That's going to be where I really make my mark, and kind of still had that mindset of long-term career. That's where it's going to go. Then before I even started, so I finished my degree, I'm about to come start my first job. I get this call from the HR department at the GE Appliance division, and they tell me, we've made the decision that we are going to look to sell our appliance division. And as a result, you can still take the job here. We can't guarantee you how long that will last for, or if that job might be eliminated. Or you can look in other parts of GE and see if you can find a job. But once you do that, you can't come back to appliances. That was a startling, and I have to admit, very emotional moment for me, realizing like I thought I had this whole career ahead of me. I thought I did everything right, got my degree, did the internships, did well, put in lots of hours to succeed. So I have to admit, it was a bit soul crushing to hear like, you might not have a job, we might just eliminate your job. Also going through my head at the time was, am I going to, I've got my degree, I thought I had a career, am I going to have to move back in with my parents now and until I figure out what to do next, rather than set off on my adventure. So it was very emotional. But funny enough, I was getting married. You saw a picture of my wife and family. I was getting married in Emerald Isle, North Carolina. Maybe a month earlier, my mom had sent a newspaper clipping that GE Nuclear was hiring down in Wilmington, North Carolina, which was like an hour and a half away from where I was getting married. And I literally just drove down there, went to the guard shack, said, do you have any jobs by chance? I'm electrical engineer. And I'd explain what happened with the appliance division. And I honestly didn't think it would work, because I'm not really sure that advice of just go to places out of nowhere and drop off resumes works, but it actually did this time. They passed it along to the HR department. Turns out that they were opening up some new roles in their Edison Engineering Development Program. They had me come in an interview. I think it was a day or two later, got the job, and where I thought, hey, I'm going to be this electronics designer, suddenly I'm joining the nuclear power division. Even more awesome. And this is something that I really appreciate. And I'll mention some folks. There was a gentleman named Ty Rogers, so my first boss at GE Nuclear, and he pushes me, like, I'm like, I've been doing circuitry my whole time. He's like, you know what? Why don't you try writing firmware? I think you'll like it. Just try it out, see how it is. Something new for you. And that is how I got into software. Is basically a boss pushed me to do something different than what I had been doing or expected. Try it out, see if you like it. And truth is, I loved it. It was great. I loved writing the software. There is absolutely a uniqueness to writing software for nuclear power plants. I'm not going to delve that here, but I will say I had a nerve-wracking moment of, oh my God, I literally just came out of college and you're trusting me to write code for nuclear power plant safety systems. But reality is it's not so simple. There's a lot of great code review, quality control, testing, as one would hope for these types of things. So I had a great experience there, great team, really invested in my growth. And I continue to invest in myself. I took some courses at Georgia Tech while I was there. So one thing, wherever you start and where you're going, I highly encourage use whatever programs are available to you from that company. So GE offered very generous options for paying for master's degrees. I think you had to get B's or higher to get the course paid for, but so it gave you some good motivation to pay attention. But yeah, ultimately, while I was there, I definitely worked on anything I could do to better myself. And I will admit, this is the part where I say there were some trade-offs. It was hard at first. I had a 40-hour week job, sometimes more than that actually, as is typical. And on top of that, I was spending probably about another 20 to 40 studying and taking courses. Definitely put it in the hours then, and admittedly that didn't leave a lot of time for friends and family. But it was good. I was able to get my degree in electrical computer engineering, master's degree, and then also ended up going for an MBA that I started at GE Nuclear. There's also something transformative that happened for my career there too. So when I was younger, I always had this passion for ethical hacking. I was always trying to see if I could like do something unexpected with a system. Um, I'm not going to get into some of the mischief, at least not on a recording, but I had some fun. Learned a lot about that, and it was kind of always a passion. So even though I'm working on firmware, uh, I kept doing things like, well, what if I send the system the thing you weren't expecting? Like the integration spec says send this, and that's how we're going to test this. What if I don't send that? What if I send something slightly altered? I send it twice. I send things out of order. I break it up and send it differently. Like what happens? And I was very good at finding ways to break the system. Turns out that was the start of a cybersecurity career. So at the very beginning, and I spent about 6 years in the nuclear division. At the very beginning, maybe 10% of my time I'd spend figuring out how to break our stuff, and then obviously work on the fixes for it. By the end of it, my job was 100% cybersecurity focused, and it branched out a little more than just breaking stuff. Also things like how do we secure our lab and whatnot. Really fun job. What I learned there most of all was my first journey into like branching out, not boxing myself in. I started off, I'm an electrical engineer, I design circuits, but next thing I know, I'm writing firmware, then I'm doing hacking on nuclear power plants. It just felt amazing to try new things, learn, and see how far I could go. Um, Ultimately, though, as things tend to happen, kind of similar to the refrigeration division and the appliance division, nuclear kind of went on in a decline. A story I don't necessarily want to delve deeply because it's quite personal and painful, but some of you have likely heard about the meltdown of the Fukushima reactors in Japan. Those were, I mean, obviously we don't operate those plants. I wasn't physically at those plants, but those were plants that our safety systems were in, and it was really tough on my own psyche for that to happen with all the time and effort we spend to make them secure. I guess I learned a hard lesson there, and that's not necessarily the lesson of this talk, but I did learn the lesson of sometimes Mother Nature makes fools of us all. It was painful, and at that point I thought maybe it's time for a career change, kind of a catalyst for me to think about what else might be out there for me. The other thing was it did cause some setback to the nuclear power industry. Obviously, when there's big nuclear disasters, you will see slowdown in new plants, and it can impact the overall job market there. So facing kind of realities of the company being in a decline mode, and the thought of it's time for me to try something else. I was sort of offered a lifeline. So one of my favorite bosses of all time, his name's going to come up a few times. His name's Russ Wolf. Great guy, good friends still. I don't work for him anymore, but good friends. He recognized my abilities with hacking and understanding cybersecurity through some projects that the corporate GE office was doing, and kind of threw me a lifeline, so to speak. Said, hey, you want to come join, move to where I am currently in Richmond, Virginia, and focus on cybersecurity at our kind of central office for that. And I took it. It was just an awesome opportunity. And ended up over time, I got into full-time, my role became pen testing and ethical hacking. And that was another one where it was sort of nerve-wracking for a minute, because I hadn't been, at that point I'd been kind of focused on control systems. I hadn't been doing the like traditional hacking of web apps kind of stuff yet. And I ended up on this team where that's our job. Every week we get, here's your target. It's an application, it's a Bluetooth light bulb, it's a traffic controller, whatever thing GE built, it could come by my desk and I had to figure out how to hack. And I had 1 week to do it and provide a report on what did I find. And so I remember going into that job thinking, my God, how am I going to do this? I've been kind of my side on the other side, like, yes, I was breaking things, but my focus was how to make them secure. So I'm sitting there thinking, with all this knowledge that we have on making things secure, the scanning tools, how in the world am I going to find anything? Definitely was nerve-wracking. And what I ended up finding was actually there's still a lot of holes in everything. There's still very much a need for folks who can find those holes and reveal them before whatever it is ends up in production. Particularly what helped me was this whole background, this tapestry of experiences, or whatever we want to call it. I was uniquely positioned in that not only could I branch out and figure out the web apps, break those, and I never had a problem finding something. I would say probably greater than 95% of things that came to me for testing, within a week I'd found something worth fixing. Even one point found a pretty serious flaw in a open source project that we used, and got a CV to my name as a result of it. So that was super cool to like get some like recognition out of that. But yeah, the whole background, right? Like, I worked on electronics, I worked on control systems for plants. It gave me this broader view and understanding of just how things work, how they work deep inside the machine. That gave me an advantage that often directed those things like the Bluetooth light bulb my way to figure out what nefarious thing I could do with it. That, I will say, it is a very interesting role, because it was like achieving a childhood dream, I'd always wanted to become an ethical hacker. I was mischievous with that stuff as a child and always eager to learn. And I like finally got to make a job out of it. And that was amazing. And it's kind of funny, because in a way, after I did it for a while, I found like that wonderful dream kind of became, I don't know how to describe, like almost rote, right? Because like, okay, next thing, roughly the same issues. Like it almost became, it started out as this like magical, how am I ever going to do this? I get to hack everything. And over time it became like yep, another one of those things, another set of the same things I always see wrong. Got to get the report done. Like, somehow the magic gets lost. So there's an interesting effect of that, of sometimes when you achieve your dreams, maybe that's not the end destination that you thought it was, and your career can keep going from there. And in that time, I did finish a few things. So again, still was using GE's. I'm very thankful for their programs for supporting and paying for education. I got my MBA. The other ethical hackers on the team used that specific image of the hacker in a business suit because of it, because they said I was like the hacker with the MBA. I just thought that was the funniest thing. I got my certified ethical hacker. I got my CISSP. Kind of did all that in that time. And it was nice. Again, these were all things where I was using the training programs that the company provided, the funding they provided, and just really helped me to continue to grow, add more skills, prove out my capabilities, and keep my career going. And then I'll leave this for you guys to do as your own exercise if you so choose. GE, amazing company, was on the original DAO long time ago, but then unfortunately things kind of started taking a decline around 2017, and the G actually got dropped from the DAO in 2018. And it's funny how the world changes and will change again, because G was widely regarded as this, like, that's the company to be at. It is the major corporation that like rules the world, so to speak. We don't believe that now, do we? Right? Like, there was major transformation of these large industrial conglomerations have since been replaced by FANG, the large tech companies, right? And I assure you, even though it may look today like they're going to be on top and reign supreme forever, that playing field will change just as it always does in time. So I'm always looking out for what's next. And at that point in my life, I have to thank Russ once more, because he actually left GE and went to Capital One. I think he did that around 2016. Then he called me up and offered me an opportunity, and it was unlike anything I'd ever done before. So he said, hey, we're forming a group in Capital One. We want to teach cybersecurity. We want to help developers learn and grow, learn how to code better. It's going to be within the HR's learning and development department. Are you interested? So once again, I'm like, okay. Nothing about my background says I know anything about teaching and how to run a good learning and development program, but I'm like, it's Russ. I like Russ. Always liked working for Russ. He helped me out before. He's given me a chance that unique that I may never see again. Let's go for it. So that's what the little green icon with the certificate represents. My very first project at Capital One. I got to build their internal training program and is certified secure software engineer. And if you're at all interested in how I did that, there is a podcast I did recently with CISO Tradecraft where I go into detail like how I went about that, how I thought about that. But honestly, what was great was I got to try something new once again. My pen testing job was becoming rote. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure it out and do it well. I had wonderful partners in the HR department, learning program managers and graphic designers and folks like that were helping me put together this vision. And it was all about, my goal was like, up until then, a lot of what I'd seen from all the security training for software engineers was this boring, you have to take it, you have to check the box and get it done, computer-based training called CBT, wasn't exactly the most exciting, fun things. So my goal was, with the background I had, let's make it fun for folks like me who have this inflicted on them. Let's make it fun. Let's turn it around, make something they want to come engage with, that they find value in, that's helpful for not just them to learn what we need, but for their career growth. So that's the kind of program I endeavored to create. And it was pretty cool because it ended up getting picked up by the whole company. I kind of thought at first, like, this will be like, there'll be some folks who are really interested. I'll get a few hundred developers who want to take it, become kind of champions. But it actually got picked up by the whole company, and every software engineer takes and completes the certification program that I built. I will say one of the best decisions I ever made there was at some point I did decide it was time to move on, kind of similar to my last role. Like I spent several years in learning and development, learned a lot about that, learned a lot about HR in general, how that all functions. Made great contacts, network, expanded my skills, had tons of fun meeting people. But it kind of dawned on me, like, time to get back into technology because things are changing, and that's kind of a theme here. It's always changing. So I was very fortunate. A gentleman named Desmond Lampt, he goes by Des. He loved my program, wanted to be part of it, hired him into my team, and he has made it. Actually, I'm going to see the next iteration of it tomorrow. I'm still advising on it, but he has just made one amazing program. So I also think there is something to finding great people who have the passion, and it just helps, like, let them do their thing, right? Anyway, so what was changing for me was cloud was really taking off. Now, it wasn't new in 2017. Certainly cloud had been around for some time, but you were starting to see at that time a major shift with tech forward companies, which, by the way, I never thought I would work for a bank, not just the L&D piece, but I did not see, like, I was like, I work on industrial stuff and big industrial companies. How am I going to work for a bank? But how Russ swayed me was not just the interesting opportunity, but this is a tech forward company. Like, you're not going to be here languishing, just learning finance. Like, you will be with tech. And boy, did he mean that, because our CEO declared we're all in on cloud. And essentially we're going to get out of the data centers. We're going to move everything we do to cloud. There's competitive advantage to be there. And there's a lot of benefit for software engineers. If you haven't really delved that yet, I highly recommend it, because when you start to use the cloud native services, and that's also not what this talk is about, but when you do, it takes a lot of burden off you of like managing the server, patching the OS, all that. It is awesome. But it kind of dawned on me, like, I'm in L&D, I'm teaching people, and I'm teaching them based on my experience. And now it's all about cloud. I don't have cloud experience, or at least, I can read about it, and we'll touch on that a little bit in the wisdom section. But like, I need to get hands-on and touch it and understand it. I did get a couple certs in over a few years, like space it out so that you can manage, like my previous slide, manage your time with your family. Work-life balance is important. I got my AWS Solutions Architect. I got my cloud certified from the same folks, ISC2, that do CISSP, and got my cloud security certification there too. But I wanted to experience it. So I changed roles again and moved from the L&D into tech. And so that was a good leap for me. And I specifically went for the cloud security role. I'm like, and I had, again, same nervousness that I've already expressed multiple times in the past, right? I was like, well, I don't know much about cloud. I do know a thing or two about security. Let me go take a role, a senior manager role over in the world of cloud security configuration. And I know one thing, I trusted myself to figure this out. was the goal. And again, as it were, it happened to be Russ Wolf who made that switch first and said, Scott, why don't you come join me and do cloud security with me now, hands on. So once again, I have so much to thank for, someone really looking out for my career. Hopefully I can pay it forward. I know there's no way I can pay him back, but pay it forward to others. So yeah, I got into cloud security, and that was a cool job. Really delved it, learned as I was doing, and did a couple things. So one was I had an Angular app, patent pending, but basically at the scale that we were going into the cloud, and cloud is mind-boggling in its scale when a company moves there. Like this, we have millions of resources that have to be constantly monitored, make sure that we have the right security configurations over all of these different types of AWS services. It was a big scope. So one thing I was doing with part of my team was software engineers building an Angular web app that we were using to basically help us manage at that scale with the rules we need to apply. Where do we apply them? How do we function? So I had that, and part of that was how do I learn cloud? I'm building an app in the cloud, so I'm learning that directly and with my team of software engineers. And then a major part of my role, especially towards the end, it became entirely my role, was our cloud custodian policies and making sure we were doing the right checks. There was a lot that went on there. I'm going to bring some of that in as I talk about wisdom, but the goal throughout was maintaining that growth mindset, right? Like constantly reinventing myself, trying something new. And as you can see over these years, yes, some things didn't pan out the way I hoped. The job market wasn't what I hoped. Certain sectors decline, others grow. So my goal was always adapt and look for where are the opportunities. And maybe every 3 to 5-ish years, push myself to reinvent and try something new. And then one really cool thing happened last year, which was I got recognized in the Ethical Hacking Top 100 Hall of Fame by EC Council, which was very cool. So that is all my job history, all the winding road that it took. Here's what I'm going to do now. I see there's some questions. I'd love to pause before I get into the wisdom. Let's answer the ones about the job journey first, and then we'll get into the wisdom. So let me take a look here. So Larry asks, what impact did getting an MBA have on your career growth? Was that a HR requirement? Did it move you to a less technical role? So here's the funny part. First off, it was not a requirement. There was nothing saying I could not become a director if I didn't have an MBA, nothing like that. Neither in GE nor in Capital One. The other thing was the leadership in GE even said straight up, MBA is only as good as you use it. It's not something that's going to get you a promotion. So I guess the question is, why did I use it? And then why did I get it? And then like, how did that actually help me? And did it change the nature of my role? So my thought process was essentially, I wanted to round out a broader skill set. You'll hear a lot about soft skills, and I do think they're very vital for anybody's success and growth, no matter what role you're in. Because ultimately, over time, the nature of, like, if you're doing well, the nature of your career will change. So it will trend towards leadership. And there's I look at it as two kinds. I'm sure that if you Google leadership articles, they'll be like, here's the 5 kinds of leadership, here's the 7 kinds of leadership. But like, to me, there's 2 buckets. So over time, you gain experience and wisdom, and you become a lead in some way. One could be a technical lead, which all of my teams have had some form of a technical lead or an individual contributor expert. These are the folks who, they're not going to do the traditional HR kind of leadership things like performance reviews, handling issues like someone needing an exception from a policy, someone needing support for a confidential health related reason. Like if you are a manager in the traditional sense of people report to you, these are all things that you need to be well versed in and understand. But a technical lead doesn't necessarily need to do that. Their real role is to help guide the more junior developers, provide them with candid feedback. Here's how you can get better. Here's how you can architect that application better. Oh, I've seen that issue. Here's the way to overcome it. Here's some thoughts on the architecture. They're there to be a coach. So even though they may stay with their main focus is to continue to maintain their technical expertise, their career is going to lead them in that direction, where over time there's less and less that they're going to be personally writing code wise and more that they're guiding and helping the team determine what they need to be doing and just coaching them to do it to their best. I actually went on the people leader path though and went with the blend. I will say this, I believe in my heart that it is important that if you are going to lead engineers, software engineers, technical folks in general, that it is quite important that you do have some measure of a technical background, because that is key for building trust. And I always try to keep my hand in a little bit to not lose that, but there is a whole other domain of things. So to me, I found that there's a lot of value enjoyment that I got out of helping and guiding others in their career growth. I wanted to take that path to become a people leader. I wanted to also balance it with staying technical. And I viewed the MBA not as a check mark to be able to continue my career growth, but more so as a way to learn these additional skills that I needed so that I could support my team, lead well, understand some of the other dimensions of that. Like what if I need to do a budget? How does one come up with that? How do I figure out how do I prioritize the right metrics to make sure we're being successful and measure? So that's why I did it. And my heart was like completely in using it to be able to apply it rather than actually like just check off a box for career growth. Plenty of people move up without one. I will say one thing, the funny part of it all was I also got a master's of electrical computer engineering from Georgia Tech. I have in my entire career used directly something that I learned from that one time. I do feel like I use the MBA knowledge on an at least weekly basis. Not saying one's better than the other. The one thing about the master's degree is it taught me problem solving and how to look at problems and break them down in many different ways. So even though I don't like, it's very rare that I go do like singular value decomposition out of nowhere, the thought of how to like deal with a complex problem still prevails. So that's my thought. Like if at some point in your life you feel you want to trend towards that kind of people leadership, I really do think an MBA is worthwhile. One other thing, I specifically did it at UNCW rather than like a remote program because I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I wanted to get that in person. So I hope that answers your question. And I guess one part, so huge for my career growth because it's given me a whole nother skill set and way to view things. I don't know that I would have been successful launching the CERT program without it, by the way. Did I move to a less technical role? My answer is essentially yes. However, that kind of happens to everyone as the years go by and you take on more of a like lead role, whether or not you're dealing with the HR related leadership stuff. Okay. I'm gonna move through these questions a little faster going so we can make sure my mind time. Talk more about tech and finance coming together in the day-to-day. What coding aspects come into play, what tech stacks are preferred. So let's see on that one. Well, if you think about it this way, tech is sort of prevalent everywhere. Any big company really is going to rely on it and build some measure of internal software. I love that Capital One is like all in embracing it. the Capital One kind of has to in that sense, because we don't have a lot of traditional banking footprint like the other brick and mortar banks have. It's online banking, mobile app. That experience has to be absolutely exceptional. And there is a surprising amount of things that have to happen behind the scenes to make all of that be the case. Um, it's one of those things that it's it's strange, but it actually does come together really well, and tech is a focal point for the company. And there are some other banks in a similar situation. But I would contend that even though these are the two sectors I've experienced, almost all of them, like the world runs on technology these days. You'll find it practically everywhere. Doesn't have to just be the big tech companies. What coding aspects come into play? Everything runs on code. I mean, it's all run by code. And then what tech stacks are preferred? So, you know, I'm not sure I can deep delve this because some of it I probably need to keep confidential. But I will say, like, I look at Capital One as a tech forward company. At GE, I saw more of like a lot of legacy code, which is not surprising for a company that had been around for 100 years. So there was a lot of things that were like Java and kind of the older tech stacks that you see. But I like to at Capital One, we're always like looking at like what's really important for us to be effective. So I've seen there are some of the older stuff still around. There's things being transformed, particularly in the mainframe space. But I mean, you see, like my app was in Angular, and that was core to my tech stack. Behind the scenes, I had Go, so I had I did a serverless app, so like Lambdas on AWS with Go was kind of my main tech stack there. All right, next question: bootcamp grad in software development, currently working on the AWS Solutions Architect certification, practicing lead code. Any advice for preparing for AWS interview process or software development in general? I won't delve the prepare for AWS interview process. I will say they have these leadership principles. You should definitely know those well. The recruiters can guide you on some of that at AWS can guide you on like what they're going to look for, but obviously I don't work there, so I don't want to delve that one too much. But software development in general, well, I'm gonna give the non-traditional answer on that one, and then I'm gonna save a little time for all the that's the question important to give you a little bit of advice, and then we can come back. So software development in general, don't discount the soft skills. When you look at Amazon's leadership principles that they have, that's part of what they're gonna test you on. So yes, leak code for sure. It is heavy soft skills. How do you work well in a team? How do you go about problem solving, dealing with uncertainty? So be well-rounded. That's where I'll go with that one. Also do leak code, but definitely be well-rounded. Okay, I'm gonna put a hold on. I see. We'll start back with Larry's next question momentarily. I want to make sure I do progress through the wisdom that I have learned. So, few things. And this actually, it's funny because one of the questions is imposter syndrome, and this is part of my answer to that. So not necessarily a full answer to it. I love this chart because reality is, and I kind of hinted at this, like, sure, I got a cloud certification. I've read the books, I have degrees that I've gotten over times, right? But where I actually learned and why I think it's so important to just start diving in is I learned from mistakes. And I think this is key of like, you've got to give yourself room to make mistakes. I also look from my own perspective as a leader. I have to give room for my team members to make mistakes and balance in everything, right? Like be careful with this wisdom, use good judgment. Certain mistakes, if it comes to health and safety, you may want to double, triple, quadruple check and avoid. But some things, it's, you have to ask yourself, well, what could really go wrong here? And if it's not too serious, like take a chance. If you get it wrong, at least you now have learned what is the wrong way to do it, which sometimes is as valuable as figuring out the right way. Give yourself that leeway to make mistakes. Trust in yourself that even if maybe I delve into L&D and I have no idea the core principles, I'll make mistakes, but I know that I've got a good team. They'll give me advice and guidance, help me learn from those mistakes, and each time I'm only getting better. So that is definitely one piece. You've got to, like, don't look at the mistakes as that's the bad part. That's the learning part is number one. Number two, focusing on the present. So this is really key. Don't get hung up on those mistakes either. Don't worry about the past. Honestly, this one I think has everything to do with the current job market. I mean, I've seen all the news articles, particularly towards the end of 2023, of like layoffs at big tech and impact there. And it is painful because we came from this point where it was like hiring was going bonkers, and then all of a sudden it swung the other way. But you have to look at it like this, like that's, and this was one of my favorite. There's gonna be at least two Kung Fu Panda things here. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present, right? We can't change what's happened. The past is the past. None of us have a time machine. We kind of just have to accept it for what it is, and then ask ourselves, well, what's important for me to do today? And then the second thing is, don't get so fixated on, I have to be this, I have to do this has to happen in the future. We can never, no one has a crystal ball. Anyone telling you they can perfectly predict the future is probably trying to scam you. Things will change, the market will change, and I can assure you that there's been at least two downturns that I have experienced in my career, pretty major ones, and they don't stay that way forever. Things come back over time, but sometimes they come back different, and that's what we have to ask ourselves. So I like to think of this advice as not a, like, just only live for today. I don't think that's the advice. I think what it's saying is, let's do our best with each and every day that we have, make a little bit of progress. It doesn't mean ignore the future entirely. Like, look for trends, prepare yourself, but mind that it could change at any moment, and be ready for that. I also wanted to throw in the Dalai Lama quote here, where when he asked what's surprising about humanity, he says, man, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money, then sacrifices money to recuperate health, then is so anxious about the future that he's not enjoy the present, the result being he's not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he is never going to die, and then dies having never really lived. This one really struck me as some of the best advice I've heard, of like, find balance in your life, right? Like, don't, sure, like, we all want to make money and have a good life, but that's not the only thing, right? One of the pieces of advice that Russ gave me was to look out for my health, because the older you get, the harder it is to get it back. I thought that was good advice. Try to be well-rounded too. It's not all just work, and how do I get that software role? There is taking care of you. Next one, pushing yourself further. I kind of highlighted this as well. Love this other quote from Kung Fu Panda. Great movie, especially the first one. There's a fourth one coming out this year. If you only do what you can do, you'll never be more than you are. And I love this quote because I feel the echoes of it in my own career, of, let me try something that I have no idea if I can do, but I just believe in myself. You've got to be the first one to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in you, nobody else will, right? Or you may be lucky and have a good leader or manager that helps and guides you, but always push yourself a little bit further. Try something you don't think you can get done. That's how you learn and get better. Being honest with yourself and others, something I indicated as well. So there's this book, Radical Candor by Kim Scott. Love the principles that she lays out in that book. But one of the things I'd emphasize is, first and foremost, you got to be honest with yourself. The book more delves the with others piece, but I will say first with yourself, right? Like, don't tear yourself down, but be honest. Like, if you need to learn something or adapt, or you're struggling, like, you've got to have that self-awareness so that you can take the steps you need to move forward. And then the others piece, seek people who you know can be honest with you, build trust with them, ask them to give you feedback, be very receptive and thankful when they do. That's the spirit of radical candor, is realizing that the feedback we give each other, the feedback we receive, it's not coming from someone trying to tear us down. It's coming from a place of heart, where folks, if they're bold enough to be willing to give you feedback and be honest, it means they're trying to help you. So keep your ears open. Take the time to reflect when you hear feedback. If you can find people who are honest with you, keep them close. And I will say my own general strategy of who do I make my team leads and my people leaders in my organization, I look for the ones who are honest about things. I look for the ones who can tell me straight up, Scott, this is not a great idea. Let me walk through with you how we can make this better. I value that because it helps me get better, helps the team be better. And lastly, doing good, staying humble and doing good for humanity. Highly encourage this. Here you can see it's called the obligation of an engineer, something that we did at my undergrad at Rose Holman. When you graduated, you could take this oath, and I'm not going to read the whole oath, but I literally keep this card in my wallet to remind me. And there's two things that I call from it. One is it says, were it not for this heritage of accumulated experience, my efforts would be feeble. I think this is very important to understand. There is a lot of knowledge out there. There is knowledge from different perspectives that you may never even thought. I also like to think everybody's different, right? Like you have your own rich experiences in life and what got you to where you are, what makes up you. You have a perspective that's valuable to be shared. We're all building knowledge. We all are leveraging all of this knowledge that's basically created computers in the first place and is the foundations of software. So stay humble and always learning, no matter how good you get. Always be looking for who has different perspective from me, a different way to solve a problem. And remember that just because it's different, it's not necessarily wrong. It could just be another good way. And the more perspectives you have, the stronger you will be, the stronger your team will be. The other thing I love about it is the end when it talks about conscious always that my skill carries with it obligation to serve humanity. I think that's really important. And I've realized in life, when I think about how can I find some measure of satisfaction, just really feel good about the life I've lived, it really won't come down to how much wealth did I hoard, how high up did I get, it's not those things, right? Like those will all fade away, and they're not things that will stick with me. It dawned on me that what I should be doing is really focusing on how can I help others in the best ways that I can. I am but one man, right? There's only so much I can do, but how do I give back? That's why I love participating with Onramp. But it's kind of what got me into people leadership too, of like, let me help guide others' careers, help their growth, because if my team succeeds, I succeed, and it's such a beautiful thing. So that's it. That's my wisdom. Let me go back to the questions. All right, it's scrolled a bit. All right, we have 7 minutes, so I'll speed run as best I can. Imposter syndrome creep into your mind every time. Yes, that is exactly what happened every single time. I constantly think, oh God, can I do this? Am I going to be able to come up to speed fast enough? Are they going to figure out that I'm not the L&D person? Are they? And by the way, I recently switched roles last year. I switched into a cyber risk role because and part of that was I wanted to see the broader view of technology projects, particularly interested in learning in the space of AI. But yes, of course, I'm constantly thinking like, I've got strong opinions. Are they going to find me out? I'm not really a risk manager. I'm this, like, in my background's all technology and engineering. But what I've learned over time is kind of what I said in that last one. Everybody on the team also comes from their own background and experience. They're not all like a lot of people I work with. They're not like the traditional path to whatever that role was. And I've realized that there's strength in those differences. But every now and then I do have to remind myself, like, it's okay. Like, you got this. Even if you're struggling at this minute, you can overcome it. Positive internal self-talk is super helpful, by the way. There is something to be said for if you're constantly being fed negative thoughts, reading negative news, it will affect you. So also make sure to put some good in when you get a chance. All right. Let's see. Zin, I may have lost. So Zin sent me a direct message, but I think it needs context. So what will be a good question to ask one-on-one with my manager, especially when it's first years of software engineering? Probably made more sense in the moment, but I will say this. The thing I would go for to ask my manager is, how can I make your life easy? I don't know. I mean, ask about your growth too. Ask, like, are there any challenges that I can try to help me stretch and grow? Definitely ask that one. But like, honestly, I always make my mission, how can I make your life really easy that you don't have to worry about the stuff I work on? Because I kind of think that the secret of getting that answer is that's what I should focus on and getting really good at. Anyway, just my general opinion. Um, you mentioned you practice martial arts with your family. I think that's awesome. And this comes from Steven. Does your training help you as an engineer? Absolutely, yes. It's really funny, but it's the case because martial arts, one, it's cool because it's a thing that I can actually do, a sport I can do with my kids, which there aren't too many of those. Especially in my late 30s, I get injured a lot easier, and I love that martial arts has a lot of stretching and like prepping, and we're not really trying to beat each other up. But no, that yeah, punch the problems away, Larry says. Sometimes it's just nice to use that to manage stress. True. But also you learn things like we have a principles that we follow in martial arts, like humility and honesty, sincerity, all these things, right? Like the same principles apply. One thing recently that I loved was part of the sparring training we do is specifically that you get used to punches coming at your face fast, and like if you're going to be in a fight, you have to be ready to react, not like, oh God, what do I do? Same deal when you're doing engineering. A tough problem comes your way. Always be thinking ahead, like what can go wrong? How can I be prepared? And you're much better off for dealing with the unknown that comes. So yeah, definitely learned a few things. All right. I know we're running out of we got 4 minutes. Another private one from Zin. Did you think for someone who is boot camp grad and working as software engineering, is Master for Tech helpful? I do think so. So here's my thoughts. Capital One has this great program, Capital One Developer Academy, where we're kind of doing that thing where we want to bring people in that don't come from the traditional software engineering background. They go through training, they get ready for a software engineering role. Love to see that. Love to see that growth. It's very much supported in the software engineering industry. What about the masters though? So I definitely think it's good if you have the time and the support. I'd highly recommend, like, honestly, if you're going to get a degree totally paid for, and I will caveat with if you have the time, because I did want to be honest with you guys about, I had some late nights. There was one time I remember I did not sleep for 3 straight days so I could get my work done and the schoolwork done. It's not easy, but if you can make the time and it's being paid for, these are all good things that add to your resume over time. You don't have to have them right away. You don't necessarily need them for that first job, but like, why not, right? If the opportunity presents itself, you'll learn something, you get better at problem solving, and it enriches your resume. I certainly would recommend it. All right. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it. Santa. Well, first off, you're welcome for the session. How do I view the current job market for software engineers, those re-entering the field after a career break? I think I can do this and maybe one more because I know we're about that time. So it is tough. That's what I see right now. I mean, you've all probably seen the same news articles I have about layoffs, a lot of the flexibility of remote work. Some of the major companies are now requiring people to come into the office. I even have a friend, I won't say where, who basically, he lives in Richmond. The office for the company he works for is in the Northern Virginia area. They basically told him he has to be there 3 days a week, otherwise he's going to lose his job. Like, it's tough, and that's the reality. But here's the thing, it won't stay that way, and that's what I want you all to remember and believe. It will change. So keep doing the right things to be ready. The jobs will come back. I mean, I have and will be posting 5 jobs shortly for my group. They're not software engineering roles, they're cyber risk roles, mind you. However, if you kind of take a broader look, guess what? Technical skills are highly useful when analyzing risk of technical projects. So take a broader look, see what's out there. Try not to box yourself in. That's a great way to make that progress, and they'll come back in time. I also like to think that a lot of the bigger companies, we like do fiscal budgeting on the year boundaries. So like the budget for hiring is returning. You'll see more jobs. I expect. We'll see what happens. I do not have a crystal ball, and I am not trying to scam you on that point. But I have confidence it will come back. Let's see. All right. I said I'll do one more. The question about, is it possible to apply for a mentorship program? Actually, Dana, can I pass that one on to you? So I know I'm one of your mentors, but any guidance you have on applying for mentorship program?
Yeah, of course. Yes, we are planning on running another cohort soon. We are just locking down our next round of mentors and still gathering some feedback from our current round, as long as I can get that scheduled soon. And but we will announcement. So as long as you're on our mailing list or following us on social media, you will see the announcement for those applications. We'd love to have anybody or everybody join who's on this call.
All right, thank you. Hey, it's really been an honor to be here. Thank you so much, Dana, for arranging the session. Appreciate talking with all of you. I hope you found something interesting, inspiring, useful in any way from sharing my career path and the wisdom I've learned. I do hope it'll help you. Also, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat. Want some advice or something, like, I'm here. I've had several people support my career growth, and I love to be able to pay it forward when I can. So thank you all very much. Great to talk with you. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks so much, Scott. Thanks, everyone. The recording will be up on the dashboard probably on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend, and we'll see y'all soon. Take care.